Welcome to the Michael Rivero What Really Happened radio program.
And welcome to our show today. It is Friday, November 6th, 2020. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. Thank goodness it's Friday. It's been a crazy, crazy week, and I wish I could tell you next week's going to be a little bit calmer and quieter. I don't think that's going to happen. We're definitely in the maelstrom, if you will, of current events here. All right, so let's get on into it here. We're going to do news until we run out of news. Then we're going to do phone calls at the bottom of the hour. In hour number 2, the lovely lady Claire will be joining us with her unique perspective on the world, and she's already promised me that she's not going to talk about politics, so we're going to confine that insanity to hour number 1. Mike is in our control room, twiddling the dials and keeping us out of trouble. Let's get right on into it. More and more evidence is surfacing of election fraud, and we're already seeing Democrats and celebrities getting out there saying, how dare you question the integrity of the election process? You're all a bunch of wacko conspiracy theories. But let's face it, the Democrats couldn't look more suspicious if they tried, to be very, very honest. So over in Georgia, overnight, Georgia went from Trump to Biden, razor-thin margin here, and apparently in one precinct in Habersham County has 276 registered voters, but recorded 670 votes. I mean, that's how completely over the top and obvious it is. And the good news there is that Georgia has just announced a recount because the margin between the two candidates is really too small, and because of all the other problems they're having with the ballots and everything, they have already gone ahead and started a recount to see what's going on in that state here. And Trump and Biden are still neck and neck. There's 5,000 votes left to count. And the difference between them is just microscopic here. So Georgia's Secretary of State has announced today there will automatically be a recount. Now, there's an article that came on out from AmericanThinker.com about stealing Pennsylvania, and definitely there's a lot that's been going on over in Pennsylvania. And they've pulled every dirty trick in the books there is, and they've invented a few new ones as well. They changed the rules mid-game. They're using COVID to suppress votes or to force them into the mail-in votes, where a lot of chicanery can happen. A lot of outright thug tactics in terms of not allowing GOP observers into the counting locations, despite a court order mandating that they do so. And the further along it gets, the worse and worse it gets here. And apparently over in Philadelphia, another enormous batch of votes just showed up. 23,277 votes all came in at the same time, all of them for Joe Biden. Now, that is statistically impossible. If they were just ordinary votes that had been missed, there would be some for Trump, based on the fact that they are running neck and neck. Roughly half of those 23,000 votes should be for Trump. But no, all 23,277 votes are for Biden. And over at this group, 538, they provide data-driven news and analysis, and they reported on their Twitter feed on this sudden batch. And apparently 5,300 votes came in from Luzerne County. The majority of those were Joe Biden calls. And apparently, as of earlier today, they're now saying Pennsylvania is looking like it's going to go to Biden here. And in another article, this one from Natural News, Pennsylvania officials claim they have discovered another 750,000 mail-in ballots. And, you know, Trump had been leading by almost that many votes in Pennsylvania, and then somehow, somewhere, without any chain of custody or how it happened, these 750,000 votes have magically and conveniently appeared to push Biden over the top. I mean, it's just really, really obvious what's going on here. Now, there is a lawsuit that has been filed in Pennsylvania Apparently, there are 21,000 dead people on the state of Pennsylvania's voter rolls. And the lawsuit was filed by the Public Interest Legal Foundation, saying that there's 21,000 dead people on Pennsylvania's voter rolls. In fact, they say at least there could be more. And they're claiming Pennsylvania failed to reasonably maintain voter registration records under both federal and state law, which says dead people are taken off the voter rolls. And the next thing to find out is how many of those 21,000 people managed to get an absentee ballot at the graveyard and send it back on in here. And apparently, as of October 7th of this year, at least 9,000 registrants on the voter rolls in Pennsylvania have been dead for at least 5 years. Another 1,900 have been dead for at least 10 years. And they found 197 registrants were dead for at least 20 years, and they were still on the voter rolls. I mean, that is, again, it's just obvious and in your face here. Now, a registered Democrat who was a poll watcher at the Philadelphia Convention Center, came on out and went public and said, I can't believe what I'm seeing. This is a coup. And he's detailing the corruption at the Philly Vote Counting Center, basically saying that observers are not allowed any closer than 30 feet to supervise the ballots being counted. In some cases, they're being kept 100 feet away. This is coming from poll watcher Brian McCarthy. He's not even trying for anonymity, as so many of the others whistleblowers are coming. And he said, this is a coup against the President of the United States of America. And he's called out the mayor of Philadelphia and the Attorney General Josh Shapiro, saying, you know, because both of them went public before the election saying there was no way Donald Trump was going to win Pennsylvania or the presidency of the United States of America. And it is obvious in hindsight, they weren't really guessing about that, that they were revealing their agenda. Now, Tucker Carlson interviewed this guy, Brian McCafferty. Social media is now scrubbing the story everywhere it's being put up. In fact, stories relating to the vote fraud that's going on are being scrubbed from social media as fast as they're put up there. So again, social media is still out there backing Biden, trying to protect him, trying to protect the election, trying to protect the vote theft here. Now, over in Pennsylvania, Project Veritas scored another one with a USPS whistleblower who exposed more backdated ballots. Now, that was the second one after Michigan that they found were backdating ballots that magically turned up at the post office the day after the election. And they were backdated and then whisked off to the counting centers. And just before we went to airtime, Project Veritas released another video of a second Pennsylvania U.S. postal worker saying that, yes, they were told to isolate these ballots so they could be backdated. I mean, this is insane. Now, apparently, the United States Post Office accepted and processed 150,000 ballots on the day after Election Day. Now, they're not supposed to do that. You know, if the ballots are properly postmarked, they can still be counted according to the changes to the rules here. But after midnight on Election Day, in some states, it's 8 p.m., by the way, they're not supposed to be accepted anymore. And yet the post office clearly compromised by the political machine, went forward with this. In fact, one of the Project Veritas whistleblowers was saying that it's very obvious that the Postal Service has a very liberal political leaning. And, you know, it's amazing. It's a felony to tamper with the mail. And believe it or not, that law was passed in the wake of an earlier election where the post office was found to be tampering with ballots that were being sent through, or actually they were tampering with political literature, where they were forwarding the literature for the candidates they liked and trashing the literature for candidates they didn't like, and that's when the law was passing. It is a felony to do this here. Now, the former Kansas City Attorney General Philip Klein was on Laura Ingraham last night, And apparently, Klein is a member of Trump campaign's legal team. And basically, he told Laura that a prosecutor in Philadelphia has threatened to throw Donald Trump in jail if he sends in uncertified poll watchers. But keep in mind that election officials are still refusing to allow GOP poll watchers in the counting room, despite a court order mandating that they do so. Okay, over in Michigan, former state senator and gubernatorial candidate Patrick Colbeck, acting as a poll challenger in Detroit, discovered a hidden illegal router connecting the tabulation machines to the outside internet. That's not supposed to be happening. These machines are not supposed to be reachable from outside, and yet here they clearly were. And Bev Harris over at Black Box Voting had reported in an earlier election where the voting machines had Wi-Fi in them that was active, meaning somebody in a car outside the polling place could access the voting machines remotely over the Wi-Fi and change the election results here. Now, a poll watcher in Michigan got kicked out of the counting location where ballots were being counted from the 2020 election. But before he left, he got a screenshot with his cell phone identifying potential voter fraud. Because it shows a whole list of voter names listed on the screen image, and all their birthdays are listed as January 1st, 1900. Now, the idea that all of these identical birthdays came in at the same time, that, of course, is a statistical impossibility. It also means that all of those voters are 120 years old. And as we reported yesterday, currently on planet Earth, the oldest living human being is 117 years old. Again, another Michigan poll watcher has blown the whistle, saying that ballots were turned in with no names on them at all. Okay. Another article, this one is coming out of National File, again in Wisconsin, Michigan. Apparently, Biden got 100% of the votes during a late night vote counting. And this was supposed to be after the election officials had stopped tabulation for the night. Somewhere in the middle of the night, after the official tabulation stopped, a whole bunch of Biden votes came on in. Let's see. Again, Michigan, we mentioned this before, 118-year-old people who've been dead for 36 years were voting in Michigan. All right? So it's definitely out there. Now, Michigan has issued a non-denial denial saying that no, dead people aren't voting. It's ridiculous. But, you know, internet sleuths were using the Michigan government's own website to see if the names of voters on the ballots were still living or dead. And so the Michigan government has shut the website down. So you can no longer log in and verify whether a voter is still alive or if they've died. All right, I'm getting a message here from the control room. Listeners concerned about trying to deny a COVID test. Maybe we could mention this so people can discuss how one might do that legally while protecting your rights, job, etc. Maybe, I mean, I don't see a problem with getting a COVID test. I'm obviously opposed to getting the vaccine, but Claire and I have had COVID tests. They came back negative. So I'm not sure what the listener is concerned about. Okay, getting back to the election theft here. Another article, this is out of Blabberbuzz. The Biden results are statistically impossible, and this election is being stolen while the corporate media and social media censors the truth. As we mentioned earlier, if you put up a story about, you know, dead people voting or those areas where more votes were cast than there are registered voters, the stories are being scrubbed immediately. I mean, it's a full court press, pedal to the metal to keep this thing going. And another article from the Gateway Pundit, and the headline reads, "We call bovine excrement." That's not exactly what they said. And they're saying Joe Biden couldn't get 10 people at a campaign rally but he somehow breaks the record for the most candidate votes in U.S. history? No way. And that's absolutely something we need to remember. Trump's rallies were just jam-packed with people. The enthusiasm was there. There were all the car convoys, the boat convoys. People were out there. They were just excited about another 4 years for Trump. And Biden was out there with these, very weak rallies, fumbling, malapropisms. I remember that one where he said he was going to put a lid on his campaign. Then he showed up to a rally. There were only 20 people there, including the people from the media. Now, over in North Carolina, little kind of something weird going on, because on election night, North Carolina announced 100% of the precincts had already been reported. All the counting was done. Trump was ahead, but they never called a Trump win. Now North Carolina is claiming that only 94% of the ballots have been counted, and it may take them a little while longer to finish. Okay? Now, Trump is ahead of Biden in North Carolina by 1.2%, but the North Carolina election officials are saying the results will not be known for another whole week. So, I don't know, maybe the printing press they're using to fake the ballots broke down or something. All right, another story, and we talked about this earlier in the week as well. This is again from Blabberbuzz. Arizona was called for Biden before the polls even closed. You're not actually supposed to do that. That's considered tacky because it can influence people who are still heading for the polls there. And the counting of the ballots is showing a much different story. Again, it's neck and neck. It's a tight race. And it's just suspicious, okay? The Milwaukee City Wire published an article with very troubling numbers identified in an analysis of results and Secretary of State files. And in a nutshell, 7 City of Milwaukee voting wards reported more presidential election votes than they had registered voters. And we reported that earlier in the week as well. Now, pardon me. So the voter fraud is just emerging all over the country, and it's not getting reported by the corporate media. And let's see. Here's an interesting little article. This is from Touchstone Connect, and it starts out that most people hear of the President of the United States as the most powerful man in the world. Well, obviously, the last 4 years have demonstrated that's a lie. We've seen the corporate, bought and paid for fake news media, the Democratic Party, the tech giants, the rhinos, and a number of others prove differently. They've hamstrung Trump ever since he first took office. And it's becoming very, very obvious that America is not run by the president. It's not run by the Congress. It is being run by stealthy, sleazy, wealthy people who hide in the shadows and under rocks as they exercise their power in their own interests. And they're known collectively as an oligarchy or the New World Order or the deep state. Now, I was having a conversation with Dave over at Crucial Nonsense a little earlier, talking about how the United States is on the verge of destroying itself. And that is perfectly in line with the globalists who cannot complete their design for a new world order, one world government, as long as the U.S. stays intact. And so all that we're seeing here may be an effort to destroy the credibility of the United States government with the American people. And all I can say is they're doing a bang-up job of it, whether it's intentional or not. Now, we're hearing Democrats and rhinos and the corporate media already out there saying, oh, come on, Trump, concede this whole thing. Trump has no plans to concede. He is going to fight this out to the bitter end, and I agree with him. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and a friendly reminder that Republic Broadcasting Network is in the middle of a perpetual fundraiser, And we really need your help because the big money is out there trying to hijack the nation, hijack the election, hijack the entire government. And the only way we're going to stop them is for the little money to unite together in the common cause of restoring our constitutional republic. And so for those of you who have already donated, a heartfelt thank you. And for those of you who have yet to do so, the postal address to send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation is 800-724-2719, extension 3. The network thanks you. Okay, getting on back here to the election and the election theft, vote fraud. This is the crookedest election in U.S. history. I mean, there's always been election fraud, in our country. There's nothing new about it, but it's just never been this heavy or obvious. And that may be the one positive thing coming out of this, is that however this election ends up, you're going to have half the population of the United States of America convinced that the election system is fraudulent and it's broken. And that strikes right at the heart of the legitimacy of the United States government. Okay, so Rutgers law professor Stacey Hawkins was interviewed by Yahoo Finance Live Wednesday, and basically saying that Trump could win the 2020 election through a court challenge. Basically saying that if it goes all the way to the Supreme Court, it does have a conservative majority. And Amy Coney Barrett is a strict constructionist, originalist for the Constitution. And a lot of what's been done this election, especially with ballots received after the deadline, is unconstitutional. And should be thrown out, absolutely here. By the way, we just posted another link at whatreallyhappened.com, and I know it's hard to get to. We're being DOS'd right now. But it came off of Twitter, and it's a video of a poll worker basically talking about 130,000 votes for Joe Biden being delivered at 4 o'clock in the morning to the counting center. And so, yeah, I think the worst thing that happened to the vote cheaters is the fact that everybody has smartphones, and all those smartphones have got cameras on them. Changes the dynamic quite a bit here. So President Trump's top legal advisor earlier today said the campaign does intend to challenge alleged voting irregularities in 4 battleground states where the vote counting is still underway. And certainly in the case of Georgia, it is restarting. And the campaign is bracing for Joe Biden to be named the winner of the election, or to name himself the winner of the election. Trump is already out there saying that he thinks he's the winner of the election. And by the way, little statistic you need to know. On the election day itself, all of the in-person voting, Donald Trump won all but 2 of the states. So that just tells you how completely skewed this is. And, Trump himself warned us this vote by mail was going to be used to sabotage and wreck the election here. So Matt Morgan, who's the general counsel for Trump's 2020 re-election campaign, is saying this election is not over. And he's saying the false projection of Biden as the winner is based on the results in 4 states that are not yet final. Okay. Now, Donald Trump yesterday delivered remarks on election fraud. And as to be expected, the corporate media cut away. ABC, NBC, CBS, they cut away from Trump's press conference on election fraud. And then afterwards, they accused him of lying. So again, the corporate media is definitely part of the problem, and I'm sure organized crime is helping them, because organized crime is real big on vote rigging here. Now, USA Today has deplatformed Trump's comments on the election, and NPR and other outlets continue to censor the president. This is the president of the United States of America, and these media entities have the arrogance to say, we're going to cut him off. We don't want him talking to the American people. MSNBC cuts the live broadcast of Trump after just 40 seconds and was followed up with Brian Williams saying that the president's statements are dangerous to the country. No, they're dangerous to the vote riggers. They're certainly dangerous to the Democratic Party. They're dangerous to the deep state that has co-opted the corporate media and apparently the post office to bring about a desired result in the election. And cut the American people out of the democratic process. Over at Facebook, they have banned the Stop the Steal group that Trump allies were using to organize protests against illegal vote counting. Facebook just shut them down. Okay, we got to take another break for commercials. We're going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, area code 512-248-8252. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our show here, and the phone lines are loading up already. So let's go to Kyle in Berlin. Hello, Kyle. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hello, good evening. Well, the election, of course. I mean, I'm sure you'll give your thoughts. Well, you already have, but I just find it disappointing, but also slightly embarrassing that it has come to this.
Yes.
You know, it's. I don't think that much will happen of the legal cases, that kind of thing. I don't think much will happen. And, you know, I do feel sorry for Trump, and most people, I believe, do feel sorry for him. But I do believe that he did take the wrong turn on the campaign, in the sense that he may have been looking at this as the 2016 campaign again, but it wasn't. Many people were at his rallies, by all means, but many people wanted to stay home. Of course, there's the conjecture about COVID, and Mark in North Carolina, I 100% agree with what he says about it. But, you know, from what I can see, the Biden-Harris campaign focused so much more intently on TV ads. And in this pandemic, most people were at home. Is that not correct?
Yeah, a lot of people stayed home because of the pandemic.
Yeah, so it's just a shame. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. But, you know, the main thing I was thinking to myself, and I stayed up very late because obviously we're I was going to say far ahead, but we're on a different time zone.
Yes.
We're on a different time zone, and yeah. It was just the results came in. It looked like Trump was winning, and then it looked like Biden was winning, and now, you know, it's just stayed that way, and it seems such a shame. But the thing I wanted to say to well, actually, sorry, just two things. The first thing is, it just seemed to me like if Trump was such a cheerleader for Israel, which many people claim. And I'm agnostic about this. Okay, I'm not for it or against this particular argument. Why did they not hand him the election on the silver platter? No.
Well, it looks to me like, you know, I mean, Israel definitely, despite everything that Trump did for them, they seem to feel that Biden is going to be even more pliant and agreeable.
Well, it could be the case. The second thing I wanted to say is that the second main point, Germany now is in lockdown again. It's apparently a partial lockdown, but I have to tell everybody, all the listeners, it seems much worse than it was. It's a ghost town now. Beforehand, there were restaurants who did takeaway, there were bars who did takeaway, and then they slowly reopened to go inside. Now they're closed. And I mean, my house is on one of the most popular streets in Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, there's many fantastic restaurants and bars. They're all closed. And I just think, why? I mean, the CDC came out a few weeks ago and said you're more likely, if you wear a mask, to contract something.
Yes.
So it's, but, you know, the thinking here is that everybody is scared of the virus. You know, it's everybody wants to turn on each other. on Monday, for example, which was the first day of the lockdown, the new lockdown, there were no toilet rolls available in the supermarket. And I thought, how pathetic of people that they're that animalistic and have such base instinct. But that's
Yes.
the world we're living in, unfortunately. I mean, let's see what happens with the election. But, you know, it's yesterday evening I was thinking Trump could turn the corner on it, but I'm not sure now. The only thing I'd say as a commodity trader is the Biden win has been very good for silver, but we all know that's only temporary.
Yes, I would tend to agree with that. And I know the lockdown is really very, very hard. And I have some very positive memories of Germany. Unfortunately, they're Munich, not Berlin, because when I was in Germany, the Berlin Wall was still up there, and you know we.
Oh,
we
so you were in the expensive part before David
Yeah.
Hasselhoff claimed he took down the wall in Berlin.
Yeah, very much so. But I really enjoyed it there. Of course, that was before the open border immigration, and who knows what it's like today. But when I was there, I really did enjoy the place.
No, it's fantastic. Just one last thing, if I may. I don't want to go on too long. We've got a bit of infighting with callers and so on. I would go back to Eleanor Roosevelt's word. I'm not saying she's an idol. She's not, but she was a very intelligent woman. By all accounts,
Yes.
She got her husband re-elected. I remember her quote, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, small minds discuss people." And I think we should be focused on taking down the idea rather than the person.
Okay. Are you referring to the fraudulent election system?
No, I'm just talking about your show, because there's been a bit of infighting and so on. And
Yes,
Layla, for example, she's a fantastic.
your point is valid. Your point is valid. We're going to try and throw some cold water on that. And
There's only so much you can do at the end of the day. I mean, I understand, for example, Layla was offended, and she's a fantastic caller, 100%
yes, she is.
fantastic. She really is. But I can understand, because I watched it on YouTube, and I watched your reactions, and also, the whole body language. And at one point, that chap who was saying all those things, I thought he was joking as well. So you can't be right for being wrong, doing wrong sometimes.
Well, I got a lot of emails, saying that the guy was a troll and that it was right for me not to bite on him, and that maybe Layla should not have gone for him as well, because that's what trolls like to do, is provoke an angry reaction. We saw that happen the last time Ryan Dawson was on this show, and that ended unfortunately with a tremendous amount of unhappiness.
I think it was a full moon when he was on, or something. In any case, thank you very much for your hard work, and I'll try and call in more often to update on the situation in Europe, because I am British myself. So
yes,
it's a different experience when you're an expat. But we won't go into what's going on with Brexit. But when I was living in London, I did vote Brexit. So that's the last thing I'll say. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Kyle. We're going to switch over to Richard in Arizona. Hello, Richard. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Well, quite a few things, Mike, but let's start with, I want to ask you your opinion of the Learner Elders of Zion protocols.
Well, obviously a very controversial document. It does seem to accurately portray how one destabilizes a society, but there's a school of thought that they are in fact a hoax. I remember that when they were presented to the Vatican, the Pope at the time, whose name eludes me, denounced them as a fraud.
Well, you're talking about a pope, and we all know what the popes are.
Yes.
They're just part of the system. I've been reading a book here that on the protocols, and it's the late Russian correspondent for the Morning Post wrote the book, and goes through all the protocols. And everything I'm reading in this book seems to be coming true. Everything that they plan it almost in lockstep with what has occurred, not only in this country but around the world. And one little part that I kind of marked here, if you don't mind, it says, this is starting from the middle of it, but it says, "But yourselves perfectly well know that to produce the possibility of the expression of such wishes by all the nations, it is indispensable to trouble in all countries the people's relations with their governments, so as to utterly exhaust humanity with dissension, hatred," let me turn here, "struggle, envy, and even by use of torture, by starvation." And it has in capital letters, "by the inoculation of diseases, by want, so that goyim," you know what they are,
Yeah.
"see no other issue than to take refuge in our complete sovereignty in money and in all else. But if we give the nations of the world a breathing space, the moment we long for is hardly likely ever to arrive." I mean, if you go through these protocols, it's almost like they're predicting everything that has occurred.
A lot of people have said that, and a lot of people read them. I don't know where they came from for certainty, but whoever wrote them definitely had their finger on the pulse of where the world was going.
Well, and they also, in their protocols, they talk about control of the press. Of course, we're talking back in early 1900s and about Europe, but now we've progressed into taking over Europe to taking over the United States, taking over all countries.
Yes.
And it just seems ironic that what they post here in the book is coming true in so many aspects of what's going on in the world. So I just wanted to get your opinion. And another thing to your callers, this is the first time I've called into your show, but I've been listening to your callers. This is not about what Trump did or what Trump didn't do. This is about us now. Not about Trump. This is about us. This is about our country. And if you keep dividing yourself, you're just playing into the hands of those who want to control you. And I don't understand it, because we're long past what Trump didn't do and what he should do and what he should have done. It's about us now. Not about him. It's about us. Trump is a stopgap, as far as I'm concerned, to what they want to bring on. And the last thing I'll leave you with, Mike, is unofficially, I got this from a relative of mine early this morning.
Yeah.
And where they got it from, I have to contact them and find out. But what they told me was that Arizona will go red. But they will not announce it because they're afraid of violence.
Yeah, that's been a big problem all along, is, the threat of violence from the lefties for any place that votes Trump. One of the Hollywood celebrities that's in a meltdown over how close the race is came on out and said everybody who supports Trump ought to be burned.
Well, and you also know about in Arizona where they handed felt-tip pens to the Republican voters and pencils to the Democratic voters. And also, I remember back with the current Secretary of State, her name is Katie Hobbs, and when she ran for Secretary of State in Arizona, she said her number one goal and priority was to register more Democratic voters. So,
well, there's a dead giveaway.
Well, yes, sir. That's what I'm saying, and that's what I think. So I'll leave you with that, Mike, and I'll let you get back to your other callers, and I appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
All right, well, thank you very much for the phone call. We're going to switch over to Bruce in Texas. Hello, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. Hey, Rudy Giuliani's been impressing me. I mean, can you imagine if instead of having a Barr as Attorney General, he was Attorney General?
Well, he was a very successful prosecutor in the Southern District of New York.
Yeah. And I wonder how they convinced Trump to appoint Barr. That guy is total deep state. I mean, I haven't even seen him throughout this whole election issue. Have you?
Well, to back up a little bit, I would imagine that if Giuliani does get this whole election issue to the Supreme Court and it is decided in Trump's favor, Trump is going to owe him big time, and maybe Attorney General will be a good payoff.
Yeah, hopefully that comes about, I mean, it's not looking too good. But yeah, if it makes it, and I heard after 7 days, these ballots are automatically disposed of. Certain states.
They're not supposed to be. They're not supposed to be in. They're supposed to be held in case of a recount. They are destroyed. And again, if you have not seen it, there was this HBO documentary called Hacking Democracy, and it focused on Bev Harris and black box voting. And they went on out and documented in places where the state law said ballots had to be stored, in the event of a contested election or a recount, and they found out the ballots were being destroyed as quickly as possible. Again, the hallmark of the Democratic machine is the rules are for other people.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Heck else I was going to say? Oh yeah, COVID. You have a certain contingent here in the alternative media, mostly callers. There's a few hosts that have been, screeching that the entire thing's a hoax. That there's not even a virus. I think there is a virus. How can you have the entire world, including countries that are hostile to the U.S. government, such as Iran, admitting that there's a virus? So I think maybe it was not only a deep state operation, but it was designed as part of to facilitate the mail-in voting.
Certainly it was used to that purpose here in the United States. Yeah, no question.
Yeah, you put the dots together and it comes out pretty clear, Man, what a world we live in. Hey, I just want to make a suggestion to the other callers. I mean, you have great callers, and I don't agree with everybody, but I want to hear everybody. But to hear everybody, you have to be a little bit more concise with your message. I mean, if you're talking for 10 minutes, unless the host wants to continue the conversation, I think you should just hang up. That's just my opinion. Alrighty?
All right. Well, I appreciate that. And, we do try and limit callers. I hate cutting a caller off in the middle of a rant, but sometimes it is necessary, especially when we're coming up on a commercial break, which we're about to do right now. So you've got about 30 seconds left for any additional comments you want to make.
No, I'll let you go. I appreciate the time.
All right. Well, thank you very much here. And rather than start a new caller before this commercial break here, interesting little story that has come on out from the Political Insider. Apparently, somebody leaked details of a conference call among House Democrats where apparently they're upset because they were expecting to have many more Democratic seats in the House. And instead, it's kind of about the same as what it was before. In fact, their control is a little bit lessened. All right, we're going to take a break here for commercials, back with more phone calls, and coming up on the Lady Claire. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to grab ourselves another phone call from James in Charlotte. Hello, James. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yes, hello, Mike. I'm going to take my cue from your previous caller and make it very concise.
Okay.
I think we've all heard the adage that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I'm sure we've heard that a million times, and that's never more true than in the law. And if the newest Supreme Court Justice Amy Barrett, had merely ruled on this challenge from the Pennsylvania Republicans to stop this extended deadline, a lot of problems would have been prevented. And I don't see any reason why she couldn't have. She was sworn in 2 days before that decision came up. And I'm going to be honest with you, I've had a lot of doubts about her. And
well, be very accurate here. What the Supreme Court ruled was that Pennsylvania could continue to count votes after Election Day as long as they were delivered by Election Day. What we're hearing from Pennsylvania is that votes for Biden were still being delivered in the middle of the night after Election Day was over. And so I don't think Justice Barrett's ruling really had much of anything, except, yes, it does open up the door for these kinds of shenanigans. But again, all of these new ballots that keep turning up magically are being treated and presented as having met the deadline for Election Day.
Yeah, well, that's an entirely different problem, and I hope that will be addressed eventually in the courts. And just one more thing quickly. I don't know how much credence you can put into this, but I had seen this a couple of things on the internet about these invisible watermarks that have been put on the ballots.
Yes.
To make sure that there would prevent any counterfeiting of ballots. I don't know how that was done or how it could have been done, since every state has to print its own ballot. It's going to be different.
Yeah, it's one of those stories. Great if it's true here, but I'll believe it when I see it. My point would be that if such and technically it's possible. There's no question it could be done. And supposedly the Department of Homeland Security was in charge of providing ballots, but. Right. Why make that public at this time? And so my instincts are saying there's something a little wanky about this.
Yeah, well, it certainly would help. I mean, anything that can prevent any type of fraud, and it has to be fought on a lot of different fronts, because there's It seems like they invent a new way to do it, a new way of committing fraud every day.
Okay, well, listen, we're going to have to let you go, James, here. We're coming up on the station identification. When we come back, we're going to have 2 more phone calls, and then we're going to close the phone lines and turn the mic over to the lovely Lady Claire. And welcome back to our show, hour number 2. We're going to take 2 more phone calls, and then we're going to close the lines for a while for the lovely Lady Claire. So let's go to Joe in Tennessee. Hello, Joe. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike, yesterday I was talking about Trump and how we all knew they were going to cheat, and hopefully he took countermeasures. And with this Steve Pieczenik story about the watermarks from the ballots, it's very interesting. And I think one of 2 things is possible here. One is that they actually did it, and they're letting Steve Pieczenik mention it so that they can they won't call the elections, because any state that's figuring to go along with this fraud might be getting a little cold feet, knowing that there might be some serious problems here. And the other thing they might have done is it could just be made up, but they're putting it out, and then they're tracking the signal intelligence and the monitoring the communications between the corrupt individuals involved.
Yes.
So I think that this is really showing itself as an attempted intelligence coup by the CIA deep staters. Norm Eisen, the guy that runs the color revolutions, and then the Patriot side with the Q and the probably Army intelligence, General Flynn's groups. It's really a high-level game that's going on here, and it's very exciting, actually.
Yes.
And
well, I'm not sure exciting is the word. I mean, we're talking about our nation here and whether it's going to survive.
Well, I know, but I mean, it's bringing things to a head. I mean, you, for instance, always talk about how we need election integrity and everything. After this election, if Trump does pull it off, and it was, they get all these corrupt bastards because of the watermarks on the ballot, there'll definitely be a big push for some kind of blockchain voting or some kind of thing, so this never happens again. So
absolutely, if Trump pulls this off,
it'd be one of the best things that ever happened for this country.
If Trump pulls this off, I'm going up to Washington, D.C., and I'm going to pound on that door of the White House and say, look, Donald, it's time to fix this mess.
Oh, it might be part of the whole, trickery. I mean, they knew it was coming. Everybody knew they were going to cheat. So he had to have taken countermeasures. If he didn't, I'd fire him for dereliction of duty. And
well,
but anyway, one other thing is that I noticed that the guy running the war room for the Democrats, his name is Bauer, and I don't know if many people know it, but that's the Rothschild name before they changed it to Rothschild. So the Bauers are, some of them might be illegitimate children of Rothschilds or just real Rothschild.
we don't need to go there. We don't need to go there. But
it's interesting. I like looking at stuff like that. Stands out to me, because it's just interesting that's the guy running the coup. Him and Norm Eisen. Anyway, I'll leave it at that, Mike. Have a good weekend, and say hello to Claire for me.
Well, she's sitting right here and listening to you, and thank you for the phone call. We're going to take one more phone call, then we're going to close the phone lines for the lovely lady Claire. So let's go to Peter in Los Angeles. Hello, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
I hope Joe's right. I'm very skeptical, but I hope he's right about this setup thing. Listen, the president of the United States is getting cut off by even NPR, which is partly government funded, right?
Yes.
He's getting cut off by the networks. He can't get on Facebook or LinkedIn, or he can't get on Twitter. I mean, he's been expunged. The point I want to make here, Mike, is that if he needs our support badly, and if he needs mass support to counter the bully boys that have been set up by the CIA and Soros and the Democratic Party, Antifa and Black Lives Matter and so on, how is he going to get the word out when he can't even get on TV? Which leaves the only question is possibly martial law. And by the way, would the Joe Snuffy private E2, would he obey when everything on TV and everything on Twitter and everything on Facebook and everything else is telling him how evil Trump is and how he shouldn't do it? So I'm not even sure that'll work. But I did want to say I sent to you something that I got through. I think the Tea Party sent out, where you're registering. Would you be willing to show up at a demonstration or something in support? I sent that to you. You might want to put it on there, and it says where to get rallies. And because I don't know how this guy can get out of this, because he can't even get on TV.
No, it's absolutely shameful that the president of the United States of America is literally being censored by these private corporations. And again, if Trump is able to pull this off, and he's able to get the Supreme Court to throw out the obviously illegal ballots, then I expect him to come back. I hope he's going to come back and put on those presidential brass knuckles like we expected him to do in 2017. And get some of these changes made here, because frankly, this nation is not going to survive much longer with this kind of nonsense. I mean, other nations around the world are openly saying it's obvious the United States is decaying, it's in decline, and we're not going to be here much longer, which of course has been my opinion for quite some time.
And Mike, how long have I been saying? Who controls the media? Who controls the banks? And what can't you accomplish if you can print money out of nothing and never be audited? Anything can be done, including what we're seeing right in front of our eyes.
That's been the biggest fraud that's been perpetrated. Printing money out of thin air and loaning it at interest is the biggest fraud ever perpetrated on the human race, and they've been doing it for 300 years.
And if you can buy up the Congress, you can buy up the DAs and the prosecutors, you can hire your private army, you can suborn the CIA. You can do anything if you can print money out of nothing and never get audited. But so I've been saying it forever. That's who's behind all this. In the end, that's who these media people are, and the source of it is the money. But
maybe that. I was going to say maybe that earlier caller was correct about the protocols of Zion.
It looks to be truer and truer every year, But man, I mean, look who's doing this. Look who's doing this. But at any rate, just like Russiagate and the impeachment, who are all the key figures in that?
Yeah.
And all the newspapers that covered all that, and megaphoned everything that all the phony documents the CIA put in. All of them. Look who owns them all. But at any rate, there we go, Mike. Please take a look at that and put that up so people can take a look and see how to register to be gotten in touch with, because the president can't get in touch with anybody.
No, but he can still use the email, and I get emails from his campaign all the time. I mean, huge amounts and everything. So, I will look for that. and make sure that gets put up at the top of the website. So, Peter, thank you very much for the phone call. The phone lines are closed for a while. We're probably going to open them a little bit later in the hour, but it's now time for this gorgeous creature sitting next to me, the lovely Lady Claire, to have her say.
Well, thank you, Michael. I appreciate that.
Okay.
And what I intend to do in this last hour is cover some articles that people might have missed with all the intense pressure of the problems with this election, and they are just multifold.
Yes.
The only thing I can say that my late grandfather used to say was, this election is looking more crooked than a dog's hind leg right now.
Absolutely.
Under a category, I would say, possibly shades of things to come here, a British woman has been threatened with a police visit for not downloading the NHS COVID tracking app. Now, this comes to us from Paul Joseph Watson via Summit News. And she said that she was threatened with a police visit if she did not download the NHS Coronavirus Track and Trace app. Now, there is an organization and a blog called lockdownskeptics.org, and it features this story of a lady from Skimpton who tested positive for COVID-19. And what does she do? The most logical thing in the world. She self-isolated.
Yes.
This was followed by in excess of 20 text messages demanding that she download the NHS app. Now, she did not do it, and, she doesn't want to be followed around by it, and I can understand that. And she is doing the logical thing. She's self-isolating, so she can't infect anyone. She was then telephoned by the test and trace system, and the caller threatened her with a police check at your address if you do not download the app. Now, she ended the phone call and utterly furious and is waiting to see what happens next.
Yes.
And the irony of this is this NHS track and trace app is completely voluntary. And right now, no British authorities have grounds to enforce its adoption legally. And it's just an example of how people who are both bureaucrats and control freaks are simply inventing laws and justifying the intimidation by means of coronavirus hysteria. Now, they seem to be deploying what could be called more draconian crackdown measures as more stringent lockdown measures are reintroduced.
Well, we had a caller from Berlin who was saying that it's turned into a ghost town there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this includes cases where police are quizzing people on what they're about to purchase before they enter a grocery store. I would say that was that Brit's business and probably no one else's.
I would agree there. Officer,
Yeah.
I'm buying a bottle of vodka and a bunch of porn mags.
Okay. And so as of last night, England has entered yet another debilitating nationwide lockdown that is going to last until at least December 1st. Mike, this is so dysfunctional, I can barely get my head around. And this from the country which gave the world the Magna Carta? Oh,
Absolutely here. But
Yeah.
I mean, it is shut down. They didn't even have their bonfires for Guy Fawkes Day yesterday.
yeah.
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 And the real pain of all of this
Mhm.
is supposedly the the track and trace system is full of bugs and it doesn't really work all that well.
That's really unfortunate for the
Lowest
British
bidder.
people. Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yep.
And speaking of which, the UK has just decreed that protests of more than 2 people are now illegal.
We protest.
We do.
We do.
Peacefully, but we do.
Yes.
Now, I've got to wonder just what kind of legislation the British Parliament is going to pass very quietly before people get wind of what's going on and they can't protest. I wonder what that's going to be.
It's definitely, the whole world is
Yeah.
turning into a giant dictatorship, and maybe that's part of the globalists'
Yeah.
plan. Maybe
Mhm.
George Orwell was right, and we've just arrived a little later than 1984.
Yes, Lord, please make George Orwell fiction again. I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Little prayer there.
Actually, he wrote the book as a warning, not as an instruction manual.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And apparently, this conflict in Nagorno-Karabakh is getting worse and worse. This came to us from South Front. And apparently, the Turkish military, I love the way this is written, continues to demonstrate its non-involvement in the war with Armenia in the Nagorno-Karabakh region. On 4 November, the Defense Ministry of Turkey announced that Azerbaijani forces had shot down one more Armenian Su-25 warplane in the conflict zone. Thus, they claimed the number of downed Armenian warplanes has reached 7. There's only one little teensy-tiny problem with this. Azerbaijan itself did not claim such an incident when the Turkish Defense Ministry made its statement. So somehow it seems like Ankara knows a lot more about what the Azerbaijani forces are doing, who are allegedly alone against the mighty Armenian aggressors.
Well, I guess the Azerbaijanis didn't get the memo from Erdogan.
Yeah. And Mike, the moment the Turks hit Armenian territory proper, Russia's going to have to do something to save face if Armenia declares their defense pact with Russia operational.
Well, Russia's already committed that if Armenian territory is hit, that they're going to come on in with full support. So, this is hanging on the edge of a regional war. Yeah.
And in a related story, there has been reported massive heavy shelling in Nagorno-Karabakh. Thousands have been killed since September 27th. And sources have told Reuters that Nagorno-Karabakh's capital city, Stepanakert, was bombarded by heavy shelling yesterday. And we've had 3 failed ceasefires and short-lived pledges by both sides to stop targeting residential areas and civilians. But, Mike, it's still going on.
No, the last ceasefire lasted exactly 1 hour.
Yeah. And the nonprofit group Reporters Without Borders called on the UN and Azerbaijan to allow the evacuation of civilians, including a group of 80 journalists from Stepanakert. 2 reporters who didn't want to be identified, and I can kind of understand why, said that the city was under very intense bombardment. Now, for their part, Azerbaijan has denied the reports and accused Armenian forces of shelling residential areas on the Azeri side of the battle. And they have been locked in very, very heavy fighting. Baku has been making gains and is calling for Armenia to withdraw its military from territories within Azerbaijan's internationally recognized borders. And apparently, Azerbaijani troops have been making some gains in the fighting and closing in on the city of Shushi in Nagorno-Karabakh, which is a very strategic lock point. And it's been said the president of the Republic of Artsakh, the de facto name of Nagorno-Karabakh, said that whoever controls Sushi will control Artsakh.
Yes.
So, I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Well, there's definitely some parties trying to keep this thing going, despite efforts at ceasefires and peace talks. And, for peace to work, everybody's got to agree, but it takes, only one person with a bomb or a piece of artillery to keep the fighting going.
I understand that the Azeris are using Israel cluster bomb munitions.
Yes, they are, which are supposed to be illegal.
Yeah, they're supposed to be banned.
Under international law.
Yeah.
And the real danger for those is the cluster munitions are brightly colored.
Yeah.
And, they don't always explode right when the bomb is being used. They just lie on the ground there, and kids will think it's a toy or something.
Yeah.
And they'll pick it up, and they'll lose a hand, if not their life.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just pretty rough.
Yes, it is.
And getting back to the United States, police are now piloting a program in Jackson, Mississippi, to live stream Amazon Ring candles.
Cameras.
I'm sorry. Thank you. And this
I don't
comes
care
to
if
us.
they live stream a candle.
I know.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I am sorry. My dyslexia hit me.
Yes.
And this comes to us from Matt Guariglia via the EFF.org.
Electronic. No, that's.
It's the other organization.
It's the other organization. My mistake.
Yes. Okay. And he starts this article by saying, "This is not a drill. Red alert. The police surveillance center in Jackson, Mississippi is going to be bringing about a 45-day pilot program to live stream the Amazon Ring cameras of participating residents." Now, apparently this organization has been warning people that the potential of misuse to undermine civil liberties of its users and communities is huge.
Yes.
And they have expressed that they're very concerned with Ring's 1,000 plus partnerships with local police departments, which allows this. It facilitates bulk footage requests directly from users without oversight or having to acquire a warrant.
Now, a lot of people are saying this is a good idea because you're going to see package stealers and criminals approaching your door. But the downside is the police are getting a video record of you every time you leave your house or return home. And that's upsetting to a lot of people who still support the Fourth Amendment and who have an instinct for a certain degree of privacy, as do I. Okay, we're going to have to take another break for commercials here. And we're going to be back with more news from the lovely Lady Claire after these few words. And welcome back to our show here. And lovely Lady Claire, you have another story for us.
Yes, one that probably didn't get a whole lot of traction this last week.
Okay.
Apparently, Israeli official is warning of war with Iran if Biden returns to the P5+1 nuclear deal. Now, Biden has said that he's going to do this, but the settlement minister warns it would lead to a violent confrontation, a war between Iran and Israel. Now, this person is Israel's settlement minister, Zaki Hanibbi, a member of the right-wing Likud party, made the comments on Wednesday night. And he was quoted as saying, Biden has said openly for a long time that he will go back to the nuclear agreement. I see that as something that will lead to a confrontation between Israel and Iran.
Well, we need to take a closer look at that because the whole point of the P5+1 deal is to prevent Iran from any kind of nuclear technology not allowed under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which both the United States and Iran have signed and ratified. What Israel wants is for the crushing sanctions to be maintained against Iran to continue to weaken them so that Israel has more control over the entire Middle East.
Yes, absolutely. Now, as most people who are listeners to the show understand, I didn't care a great deal for President Obama.
Yes.
But I do think that the 2015 nuclear deal was one of his finest accomplishments, to be honest with you. And I thought it was definitely a move in the right direction. And if Biden wants to reinstitute the deal, who is Israel to tell him he cannot?
Well, I think this is one of the reasons why, despite all the good things Trump did for Israel, Israel wants Biden to be the next president. They see him as being much more pliant and agreeable than even Trump was. So there's gratitude for you, right?
Yeah, and here's a very interesting wrinkle. A Biden presidency would bring huge pressure on liberal Zionists from pro-BDS Jews. And it was the big news, Jewish world news, on Election Day. The Jewish community is overwhelmingly liberal and progressive. And secondly, 22%, Mike, I was astonished at these numbers.
Yes.
22% of Jews under 40 support boycott, divestment, and sanctions against Israel. And so what this means, if the inevitable comes to pass and there is a Biden presidency, we are about to see a very huge shift in the Israeli lobby, which is a Jewish communal institution. Apparently, the liberal Zionist group J Street, which fought Trump and Netanyahu at every turn, will take over as the centrist Israel lobby with a lot of friends in the Democratic Congress. AIPAC, which supported Netanyahu blindly and Trump quietly, will become more marginalized on the right.
Okay.
And with Trump gone, J Street will lose its right-wing boogeyman and find itself on the right side of a liberal Jewish discussion.
Okay.
Young left communal Jews who support Palestinian human rights are going to be demanding real action, not just lip service, to the two-state solution. So that could be a very interesting development.
It could be, but Israel's moving very, very rapidly to create a situation on the ground that would prevent a two-state solution. In fact, on election day, when Israel knew that we would not be looking, they went out. Oh, yeah. You already have this here?
Yes, I do. I do.
Pardon me for stealing your thunder. And tell them.
No stealing, dear. We share.
Well, actually, this is not the story I was talking about, but apparently they did a massive bulldozing, rented lips over in the West Bank, one of the largest demolitions that they've done in decades.
Yeah. And apparently, while we were watching election results, Israel decided to make 41 Palestinian kids homeless as the world was watching the U.S. election. And 11 families were just left scrambling after Israeli forces destroyed their village in the Jordan Valley. And this was, the imaging just breaks your heart.
Okay.
And on the evening of Wednesday, 4 November, it was raining like heck over the Palestinian towns and villages of the occupied West Bank. It was the first storm of the winter season. As hundreds of thousands of Palestinians in the West Bank took cover, 11 families in the northern Jordan Valley were left to sleep under the open sky with nothing but a tarp for cover. And this Palestinian activist, Mohammed Shatea, made the observation, as the attention is focused on U.S. election 2020, the Israel government chose this evening to commit another crime, cover it up, to demolish 70 Palestinian structures, including homes.
Yes.
And this is just hours before a cold front ripped through the West Bank. Israeli forces demolished the Bedouin hamlet of Kirbet Humsa, home to 74 Palestinians, including 41 children, one as young as 3 months old. And they were about to have lunch when bulldozers arrived in the morning. Military jeeps and soldiers surrounded them. Aisha Abu Awad, 56, told Middle East Eye, as she cradled her 3-month-old granddaughter, Adil.
Okay, well, we're going to have to take another break for commercials. And when we come back, we're going to open up the phone lines, and Claire's going to finish her story, and we're going to be okay. Welcome back to our show here, and the phone lines are full already. But before we take phone calls, Claire, you wanted to finish this story.
Yeah. Apparently, the Israeli military got there at about 11, and the lady being interviewed said, then they told us to start evacuating, and they began emptying all of our belongings outside. And military jeeps had arrived with a busload of workers from the Israeli Civil Administration, which is responsible for enforcing the Israeli government's policies, including home demolitions in the West Bank. And as armed soldiers and the civil administration workers emptied this gal's belongings outside her home into the soil of a hilltop, Abu Awad said she was absolutely humiliated.
And of course, under the rain, much of that's going to be destroyed anyway.
Yeah, and she said, we stood there and we cried, but what could we do? As she watched bulldozers tear down her home, her family's livestock pen, water tanks, as they all stood out in the rain. Meanwhile, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shatea accused Israel of timing the demolitions for Election Day in the U.S. when the world was distracted. And of course, that's exactly why they did it.
Absolutely.
And, can you imagine the devastation of being thrown out? And again, this lady says, we are helpless against the occupation. The world is doing nothing to stop them. Now, according to human rights group B'Tselem, which, by the way, is a very creditable Israeli human rights. I have heard great things about them. The demolition in Kirbet Humsa comprised 18 tents and sheds that housed the families, 29 tents and sheds used as livestock enclosures, 3 storage sheds, 9 tents used as kitchens, 10 portable toilets, 10 livestock pens, 23 water containers, 2 solar panels, and watering troughs for their livestock. And apparently, B'Tselem is also reporting that the Israeli forces destroyed more than 30 tons of fodder for their livestock and confiscated a vehicle and 2 tractors belonging to 3 of the residents. How do people become non-human in the eyes of the Israelis? I can't.
I think it's the Israelis who are non-human. I mean, they certainly don't seem to have much in the way of any sense of compassion for their fellow human being.
No.
But again, as you point out, from their point of view, they're not dealing with human beings.
Yeah.
And that's, at the heart of their whole racist thing. So should we take some phone calls?
I think we should.
All right. We're going to take some phone calls now, starting with Marco in Alabama. Hello, Marco. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind today?
Hey, Michael. How are you? My name is Marco. I'm
yes.
probably one of the younger callers that probably ever called this station. I mean, I was born in 1989.
Okay.
Basically, I know it's Powhana Friday, and I know, that everybody wants to be in a good mood and as best as they can, but I just feel so despondent, Michael, dude, about, what's going on in this country.
Yes.
I mean, to sit here and see, when you call conservative radio stations, your local conservative radio stations, and you sit here and when they keep saying, where's the proof, as it pertains to the voter fraud.
Yeah.
They just deny.
Yes.
They just deny, all of these underground reporters that do such a good job, and that because they're not sitting in a trailer putting on makeup and waiting for all of the rioting in Charlottesville to come over before they go on their well-lit platforms, to tell us, what's going on, doesn't mean, that people, are not credible, journalists and all that stuff. I mean, I totally am a part of a generation where Fox News is irrelevant, CNN is irrelevant, MSNBC is irrelevant, ABC, NBC, CBS, irrelevant. And I get everything that I can from you guys, multiple sources of content creators, and just to sit here and see, that our country is being stolen from us, and mainstream normie conservatives, are just perfectly cool with this. And they keep, one thing that I would like to ask everyone is, in 2016, when we elected Donald Trump, was there really a reformation in the Republican Party? I mean, I just feel like I'm not even connected with conservatives, Like, these people are on a total different planet than what I'm in. And I just feel so distraught, Michael.
Well, I certainly understand how you feel. I mean, this past week justifies substance abuse, and a lot of people are very upset. And you're absolutely right. In the corporate media, it doesn't matter if they're liberal or conservative. The orders have come down from on high. Cover up the Hunter Biden laptop story. Don't report any of the stories about massive election fraud from coast to coast. And the only way people are finding this stuff out is to come to the independent media, like Republic Broadcasting, and share information with each other using email, which is still not being censored yet, but I'm sure they'll get around to it at some point. Biden has already said that if he becomes president, he's going to go after the independent media and shut us all down.
I just feel, Michael, that even the conservatives, are turning on us, Like we are a different class of people, because we get our news in variety, because if you're hearing the same thing from all of the news, the corporate, corporate radio stations, the local radio stations, they all have like a liberal parent company that owns them. So you're getting propagandized when you're hearing conflicts of narrative. And it is just so scary, that, to sit here and think, that, we all voted for Donald Trump, because the elections of 2008 and 2012 were so bad that the Republican Party was just as dead, as the Democrat Party, And if it wasn't for Donald Trump, I honestly believe, that we have changed, but all of our gains are going to go nowhere, and they're going to die, with Donald Trump, because the Republican Party was failing us. The Republicans, would not stand up. There is no reason why Obama should have had 2 terms. And we're going back to this warmonger Bush era, type of conservatism, because basically you sit here, and I was listening. Go ahead.
I said we're going back to the neocons, which is why I call myself a paleocon.
I mean, I just feel like, things, within the Republican Party, dude, have changed. When we elected Donald Trump, we became, more inclusive. We included liberals, dude, into the party. And these liberals, dude, they had ideas and they wanted to fight and all that stuff. I mean, one day, I discovered you 4 years ago. I discovered Alex Jones first. I mean, that is where, my eyes started opening and I started having anxiety, dude, about what's really going on in this world and things of that nature. But, if it wasn't for Alex Jones, I would have never, discovered you. I would have never discovered countless others and decided to start thinking for myself and things of this nature. And it just seems like, the independent media listeners, are so despondent, but we're not going to cry, like liberals or anything like that. But it just feels like all around us, dude, our countrymen won't fight, dude, that they're all in a zombie trance. And that, basically they're bowing down due to this COVID stuff, dude, which is essentially, dude, a de facto martial law. And, and scanning QR codes, instead of getting a menu, when dude, that they're using that, dude, to contact trace us. And these people, dude, are just not smart, and they just don't want to believe it. And I'm just afraid, dude, that we're going to be the ones, dude, that are going to be ending up, dude, in the FEMA camps and all that.
Well,
and our own people will sell us out.
Well, again, my concern is that we, and again, as I mentioned earlier in the show, the foreign press is looking at what's going on in this country and describing it as obvious signs of the decay and decline of the United States. And so I think we're definitely headed for a great fall from all the corruption in the upper levels of our corporate and governmental structures. And we're just going to have to ride it out. Times are going to be very, very tough. They can't throw all the conservatives in FEMA camps. There's too many conservatives and not enough FEMA camps. But what they are going to try and do is go back to the golden days of the Cold War, where everybody listened to corporate media and believed what they were told. But I've talked to a lot of people. I've traded emails with a lot of people. And the sense I'm getting is that regardless of the illusions that the corporate media are putting out about people going along with all of this, it's not really happening. I'm seeing a lot of disgust out there, and I'm viewing as a positive thing that we're going to come out of this crisis with the American people understanding how badly they have been bamboozled, that they're not a part of the functioning of this government that they pay taxes to.
I just have a hard time believing this because, it just seems, dude, that, conservatives, sound like liberals and liberals, sound more progressive and conservatives sound more progressive. They're using, their ideologies and mannerisms and all that stuff. And they want to sit here and censor, people, dude, that will think outside of the box. Like one of the questions was, who do you think would be the next, president? And I sat here and I called it and I said, after the election of 2016, after Donald Trump and after, we've made so many new gains, how can we ever go back, dude, to like a Bush era neocon, dude, or somebody, dude, that's not even free speech, like Marco Rubio, or I mean, all the candidates, dude, that they're listing, possible 2024 candidates, I would never vote for in a million years, dude, because Trump changed the game. I mean, despite what you think
of him. That's why they hated him. That's why they hated him so much. He was a true outsider.
When I voted for Donald Trump, dude, I felt free. I felt like, this is the first time, dude, that, that I'm getting a candidate, dude, that is going to do something, and things like that. Yes. There's parts of, our community here on RBN, because I've been listening to you guys for 4 years, that feel, dude, that Trump has let you down. But, it is the fight, dude, the overall, dude, things, dude, the intangibles, dude, that Donald Trump brought, dude, that set him apart, dude, from these Bush-era neocons and all of these politicians that don't care about us and things like that. And I'm just afraid, dude. I'm afraid in this country, dude, big time, every day. I mean, I served in the military, And I was in the Army and all that stuff, dude, and I can't talk about certain things. But on the other hand, it's like I could never draw, dude, a firearm, dude, against another American citizen, but it just feels like this society, dude, is pushing us towards it.
Yes, I agree with you. Anyway, listen, Marco, we're starting to get close to the end of the show, and I got a bunch of callers waiting on the line. So thank you for your input. Thank you for your call. And we're going to switch over to David in Boston. David, welcome back to the show. What's on your mind today?
Oh, hi, Michael. Hey, it was great to hear Lady Claire. She demurred when I told you that I'm convinced that she taught Stephen Cohen everything he knows.
Yes.
So now, since Claire demurred to that, I want to see how modest and how humble and demure Layla from Canada is. So.
Well, she's the next caller.
Yeah, Mike. I'm absolutely convinced that Layla taught Anand Sharawi everything that she knows.
Well, we'll be sure and ask her when we switch over to her.
Oh, she's on. Okay. Hey.
Yeah, she's the next call.
Thing, huh?
Layla is the next call.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Mike. Mike, last night I saw shocking photographs that could be on the cover of any tabloid of Donald Trump with Melania and Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein, Jeff Epstein. In one picture, Trump has his arms around Ghislaine, one arm around Ghislaine, and another arm around Melania. And trust me, Melania
those New Yorkers,
the way she dresses as First Lady. Have you ever seen some of these photographs?
I've seen them, and I know that Trump's enemies are trying to make a big deal about it. But you also need to remember that Epstein and Trump were very wealthy. They moved in the same social circles. So it would have been far more strange to not have an instance where they were meeting each other and socializing with each other. So I don't see this being a really big deal.
Mike, the problem with that, I heard Trump, I heard him with his own words saying that he's denying he ever met Ghislaine, and then saying, she may possibly have been at a party that he attended and all that. He denies any relation, and they're all lovely.
Well, I hadn't heard that part. I hadn't heard Trump say that.
Yeah. Absolutely,
okay.
Mike. He completely denies it, but it's important because he's compromised, and that explains all these appointments.
And
William Barr, these
entirely possible.
Being made by him.
Epstein may have compromised our entire upper level of government. If you go back to the flight logs on the Lolita Express, I mean, anybody who was anybody was taking trips down to that island in the Caribbean. Anyway, listen, David, I hate to be brusque, but we're running out of time, and I do want to switch over to Layla in Canada. So thank you for the phone call. And Layla, welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
First, Dave's comment about Hanana Shlawi. She was actually the girlfriend of Peter Jennings, who was probably the only prominent news anchor in the U.S., first the Canadian, who was cognizant of the dilemma of the Palestinians.
Yes.
And he died of cancer, which I think we recognize cancer often occurs after someone has contracted a virus. Never mind that he was a smoker, whatever excuse was put out there, but he was silent.
Well, Layla, there was that big scandal. There was that big scandal where there was a vaccine that was put out that had cancer genes in it. It was a big stink. I think this was back in, it was a while back, and the vaccine was recalled. But boy, if you want to get rich in the medical industry, the first thing you do is you make everybody sick.
Yeah, well, a lot of the genetic engineering was done in Israel, and I'll discuss that another time. Right now, I want to get to the concept of, the Rothschilds having been the first Jewish bankers that parasitized everybody and the entire financial system. Cuneiform tablets were found during excavations by Americans, and I can no longer find it online. I found all the details of their activities in what used to be called the Jewish Encyclopedia from 1906.
Okay,
But
Layla, got to put you on hold. I got to put you on hold. Don't hang up. I'm going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. And welcome back to our show here, last segment of our program on this Powhana Friday. We're talking with Layla in Canada. Layla, just sort of pick up where you left off.
Yes, the first records are cuneiform tablets that were uncovered during excavations done by Americans in the late 1800s, and they found a whole household with recorded the clay tablets recording business activities by the bankers known as Murashu and Sons. That's M as in mother, U-R-A-S-H-U and Sons. They existed at least from 400 to 500 BCE during the Babylonian period, within the Babylonian city of Nippur, N-I-P-P-U-R, and their activities extended during the reigns of the Persian monarchs, during Artaxerxes I and Darius II, as well as Artaxerxes II. They would give loans to people and demand collateral of their cattle, their grain, the harvest of their crops, as well as their anything that they had. And they used to charge 20% interest. If they defaulted, they would then charge 40% interest. Once they took over the assets of the people who obviously defaulted, they converted that into silver coinage, which brings to mind the image of Jesus in the temple throwing out the money changers.
Yes,
because they were there acquiring more of the livestock.
Okay, Layla.
Now the word Jewish.
Layla.
I know the show's over.
Yeah, the show is almost over. I'm going to try and fit in one more call here. Steve in West Virginia, hello. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Lost Steve.
We lost Steve. Let's go to Miles in Maine. Hello, Miles. Make it quick. We're almost at the end of the show.
That's right. These calls need to be limited to 3 minutes. Dave went on, and the next call was Layla, and instead of him yielding the floor, he keeps talking. Now I'll get to my question, which will take under 3 minutes. One, I want your opinion. What do you think we should have all these polling places be cameraed and all the workers have body cams on them? Secondly,
I think it would be a really good idea.
Why doesn't Trump get out here and give $1 million reward for the arrest and conviction of anybody providing testimony that leads to the prosecution of anybody with irregularities in this election? I'm not going to take up all your time, but I want you to think about what I said. Thank you, Michael.
Well, I mean, the local laundromat and the banks, they all have security cameras recording what's going on. And the idea that polling places can't have those basically tells you, again, it's not transparent, it's not verifiable. And unfortunately, I apologize to my remaining callers because we are pretty much at the end of the program. It's been a heck of a week. And like I said at the top of the show, I'd like to predict that next week is going to be calmer and quieter, but I would be lying to you if I said that. So please stay tuned to the John Stedmiller Show. He's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please spread the word of Republic Broadcasting. Spread the word of whatreallyhappened.com. Apparently, Richard Carey is going to be the guest host on John Stadmiller's program, so stay tuned for that. We'll be back on Monday. Aloha, America.